Cop City is the proposed development of a urban warfare training center for police here in the city of Atlanta.
This would be a new training facility to allow the police to further develop and hone their oppression of poor and marginalized people.
These are not everyday facilities like classroom space or learning how to drive between orange traffic cones.
It's going to include military grade training facilities, bomb testing sites.
A shoot house, meaning a mock house, a mock village, a mock city, if you will, for tactical training, active shooter training.
Tear gas deployment capabilities.
There would also be an EVOC, Emergency Vehicle Operations course. Toys, basically. These are toys for cops.
It's proposed to be built in the Waylani or South River Forest, 381 or so acres of that forest, and so they're gonna have to really destroy a large part of the environment to develop it.
They want to build up this huge militarized training station so they can continue to develop and hone their techniques of oppressing and brutalizing Black and brown people, poor and marginalized people, controlling crowds, riots in the wake of the 2020 George Floyd uprising.
Its real name is the Atlanta Public Safety Training Center. First and foremost, this land, and not just these specific land parcels, but everywhere around us, is stolen indigenous land. This land specifically was inhabited by the Muskogee. You may have heard them referred to in school as the Creek. After it was stolen, it was a plantation. There were many plantations in this area. The family that we believe owned the plantation that the prison farm itself was on, we believe it was the Key family. We believe that this is the same Key family that appeared on an 1860 slave census, showing that they owned 19 slaves on this land. In 1911, another member of the Key family sold, I believe, 268 acres to the city of Atlanta. Farming and prison operations kind of began properly, at least by the late 1920s, early 1930s. So certainly by late 1930s, 1940s, the Atlanta City Prison Farm was well underway. And the horror stories began pretty quickly. Samuel Baines, a 36-year-old Black man, dropped dead shortly after a patrolman woke him up to get dressed. Mark Isaiah Willingham died after becoming sick. Robert Reynolds, 49, Black man, died from head injuries, prompting an investigation. In reference to Reynolds, mayoral candidate Charlie Brown declared, approximately 10 prisoners have died in the jail in the last 4 years under so-called mysterious circumstances. Whether it was an intentional lack of health care to outright abuse and murder, people died there. We do not have an exact date for when the prison farm closed, but we do know, obviously, the equipment was sold off in 89 or 90. And there's discussion around 1995 or 1996 of using the prison farm to house the city's homeless during the Olympics. Throughout the 90s and the 2000s, tires were dumped there, industrial waste was dumped here. We don't really know just how poisoned this land is. This is stolen Muskogee land. This land was a plantation. This land was a prison farm, which is just another word for a plantation. People were raped here, people were sprayed with chemicals here, people died here. People's bodies were rented out for labor and bussed off to other parts of the city from this land. We've used this land as a dumping ground. We have not respected this land, and we have not respected the people that lived on and were forcibly held on this land. And now we want to give it to the police.
The establishment of Cop City will really affect the entire country. Atlanta will be a leading exporter of a lot of violent tactics, police tactics, if this training compound is built. Training police officers in urban warfare tactics and with military grade weaponry is really dangerous. And we've seen examples of that through the killings of folks like Anthony Hill and Shamarian Robinson, Matthew Williams and Rayshard Brooks. Those are examples of how militarized tactics really only increase the likelihood that police will kill. We see it as important to address or try to stop the development of this project in order to increase the safety of Black, poor, and working class people in the city. This project will increase and intensify gentrification in the area. Gentrification is really just the process of of removal. In the beginning, it was settlers, right? Like, settlers moved in and removed the original people who lived here. Police are really the enforcers of these processes. When we think about how their role in terms of criminalizing and incarcerating Black and brown people, that effectively removes those people from the neighborhood and allows for wealthier, often white residents to take their place. And so we can point to the example of the many evictions that have taken place, and police really playing a key role in evicting people. So we see Cop City as a force to really break up the neighborhood and allow for wealthier residents to move in and just changing the makeup of the neighborhood. We understand that this will also just accelerate climate change, right? And so the impacts of that will be felt by and large by the surrounding communities, which are again Black and brown. Destroying the forest will bring about things like flooding and decreased air quality and rising heat levels, all of which will be felt, again, disproportionately by, the Black surrounding neighborhoods, but really all of Atlanta. It's important as we think about, the struggle to defeat climate change, like maintaining the forest is key to that. And, again, climate change is something that is already being felt disproportionately by Black and brown communities. And so we think, the Waylani forest is so key, and for them to destroy 381 acres of it to build this militarized urban warfare training facility is unconscionable. We can't allow that to happen.
My experience living in this forest has been wild, beyond imagination. We have something like 7 or 8 platforms and tree houses up now. This is the second wave of this. The cops came in last May and tore down a bunch of tree houses, but we promptly rebuilt them. You know, it does a number of things. First of all, it brings me a lot of joy to be able to build my own house in this forest as an act of resistance to the police, as a tactic that frustrates them week after week, raid after raid. And, you know, I think that's really what it is right now, and it is also stopping construction. And, you know, this is a non-violent form of resistance, protecting the trees along with tying trees together so they can't be felled. People in this movement also build barricades to prevent the cops from moving through the woods, to prevent the movement of machinery through the woods. The blend of the symbolic and the practical is definitely really important here. Tree sits are inspiring. They can mobilize people to take more risks with whatever level they're comfortable with. There's a huge diversity of tactics in this movement. Property, such as machines, windows, are not more important than living things and living people. And that sort of resistance is really the least that people can do in response to the violence that is inflicted daily by the police and the state. Just our visible presence here, whether it's in the line of construction or not, is a deterrence from construction. People see the militancy and the tactics that are being employed here, and it has inspired actions all across the country. This movement is completely autonomous and decentralized and not controlled or directed by any sort of organization, nonprofit or otherwise. There's no institutions, no formal leaders. There are people doing what they feel is right, and that means that we can be extremely creative and we can do what's effective rather than sticking to tactics that have been tried and tried again with little to no successes.
We've organized protests and we've also done work to get the word out and you know, let the surrounding communities know what's happening, because there's been very little transparency coming from, you know, the folks behind the project, like the Atlanta Police Foundation and, you know, City Council. And so we've, you know, worked to, you know, just canvass surrounding neighborhoods, just to, you know, knock on doors and let people know what's happening in their neighborhood, because we understand that, you know, as the police, you know, continue to militarize, that there's no way that, you know, that they'll be able to fully meet the needs of our communities. That, you know, we need to rely on each other in order to defend ourselves, to provide for a safe and secure environment for ourselves and our communities. That's looked like building out, you know, community defense programs that include things like medic training and first aid and, you know, disaster relief and, you know, restorative and transformative justice practices that really build community defense outside of, you know, what the police or the state might offer. A couple of our programs are more focused on how do we keep residents in place, how do we make sure that we maintain the character of the neighborhood and ensure that folks are better equipped to stay where they'd like to stay in their homes. And so that has meant, you know, providing things like $750 a month to residents who ask for, you know, code enforcement, rental assistance, or, you know, home repairs. And so that is one program we offer to residents in South Atlanta. We are also engaged in a liberation program, which is a program we use to distribute food, household and cleaning items to, you know, folks who ask for it, just to make sure that people have more resources to help them, you know, satisfy their basic needs. The work of community movement builders we see as, a part of the broader movement in the sense that there's a lot of work taking place here directly in the forest. There are forest defenders who are occupying space and, working to prevent, trees from being cut down and development from taking place. And our work is meant to complement and be in concert with those efforts by really doing some more community defense. We want to protect the safety and security of our communities, and this project won't do that. It will only worsen those the safety and security of those of the communities that we live in.
People are ready for something else. People are grasping tangibly the suffocating brutality of the police state, the imminence and immediacy of climate change and ecological devastation. It's not some far-off dystopia, it's already here, and people are responding in kind. People need to know that Cop City will never be built, but we're not going anywhere, and that this resistance is not only absolutely necessary, but it's a lot of fun, and it frequently feels really good to resist something that is just so ontologically evil. No compromise in defense of Mother Earth, no compromise in defense of our lives, no compromise in defense of our freedom or autonomy. We're gonna stop Cop City.